stat, and one that's widely reported. Just 6% of South Africans are currently able to retire comfortably. And sitting in that 94% that isn't adequately prepared is a generation of people classified as millennials. They're a tech-savvy, growing demographic that wants their demands met immediately. So what are some of the challenges when it comes to convincing millennials to save for retirement? And how is the industry responding to this? Joining me to find out is Anelisa Mti, Advisory Partner at Citadel Investment Services, and Moroka Modiba, MD at Fatima Capital, and author of Think Yourself Rich, a step-by-step guide to financial freedom. Anelisa, Moroka, thank you so much for joining us. So Moroka, let's start off with you. If we look at millennials, what do you think is the biggest stumbling block to getting them to save?
I think, you know, when it comes to millennials, most of them, you know, they are actually saving currently, but you know, most of them are saving in savings account, meaning the bank account. So for short-term goals, it's okay. It's okay. You know, for emergency funds and a deposit for a car, I mean, that's fine. But when we're thinking about retirement, you know, putting your money in your bank account is not the best option, because you want to put your money where it can grow above inflation. Because if your money is growing below inflation, eventually you will face the risk of your money losing purchasing power. You know, so I think most of them, they are saving, but they're not saving at the right place, you know, for their long-term goals.
We're going to get into converting those savings into investments a little bit later, but Annalisa, I want to turn to you now. The millennial generation, while Moroka highlights they are saving, the pressure to save is also quite unique for some. We have what we call black tax. It's a generation of millennials who are having to support an extended family as well, which puts savings under pressure. Yeah. Are you seeing this coming to the fore when you are dealing with this generation?
Yeah, I think with a lot of people in the millennial generation, you know, it's difficult for them to be putting money aside for their retirement, where in the short term they can see the struggling that's happening in their own families. So I think a lot of people tend to think more short term, let me help out here, not looking at the disadvantage they're putting themselves in by not saving towards their retirement.
Do you also find that it's maybe also the bad savings habits of previous generations that filter through to this generation? Because when it comes right down to it, it's also a question of, no matter what generation we look at, education on how to save and financial planning is also lacking.
I think you don't really get more of that failure to save. So I think a lot of millennials, because of seeing what the older generations have gone through, they do want to save. But I think it's not having the correct information on how to be able to save. You know, just a bit on what he spoke about previously was millennials do want to save, but they normally want to save into bank accounts. So because they see it as a safe investment and it's the one thing that's most accessible to them, they don't look beyond what other savings vehicles they can use.
So let's pick up on that, Moroka. A lot of people say that millennials don't use instruments on the stock exchange because they came of age during the financial crisis, and that's speaking to risk. And when you're young, you need risk as part of your portfolio, right?
I think you're absolutely right with that, because most of them, we must remember that they started working, you know, at about 2008. This is when the financial crisis happened. And obviously, I mean, there was a lot of bad publicity when it comes to the stock exchange. So most of them are cautious in terms of putting their money into equity-based investments, which are currently regarded as volatile and risky. But they need to understand that, you know, equity, you know, yes, it might be volatile, but in the long run, you know, they outperform other asset classes, which cash included. So it's very important for them to understand that, yes, in a short term, there's going to be volatility, but in the long run, they will come out okay, you know, with a decent return.
So then how do we address this fear of investing? Because it is reasonable to expect that people would want their capital to grow at above inflation rates while protecting their capital from volatility. So how do you think we address this issue of the fear around investing?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think the starting point has to be, the conversation about, either saving and investing at home, meaning that, we need to have this conversation at home. And we need to also have this conversation at schools, because currently, there are very, very few courses that really talks about money at schools, right? And we can actually extend it to even the companies where these millennials are working, whereby, employers can participate and invite, financial educators or, financial or authorized financial planners to come and give guidance, to help them understand different options, different investment products that they can, use for their financial goals.
We're going to hit pause on the conversation for now. We're back right after this with more on millennials and retirement planning, so stay with us.